Good day. My name is Rajanjob A. Silvero from BS Biology 4, and this is my demo teaching for strategies in teaching biology. So, let's start. So, to start off this presentation, here I have 4 pictures. First is the picture of the heart, and second is a picture of red blood cells. Second is blood vessels. Here we have an artery, a vein, and capillaries. Next is the heart with the blood vessels. So, what do you think these 4 pictures suggest the topic is for today? Well, if you guessed the circulatory system, you'd be correct. So today, we'll be discussing about the circulatory system, their functions, components, and circulatory patterns. So, in this presentation, we'll be having 5 objectives, and we'll be tackling to each one of them. First are, what are the components of the circulatory system? Next is, what are the components of the heart and its function? Next, what are the types of blood vessels and their function? Next is, what are the components of blood and their function? And lastly, what are the different circulatory patterns? So, we'll start first with the components of the circulatory system. So here we have the 4 pictures again. So as you can see here, we have the heart, the blood vessels, blood, and these 3 consist the circulatory system. They work together with the lungs, but lungs are the part of the respiratory system, so they're not considered to be part of the main list of components. So let's start first with the heart. Okay, so the heart pumps blood and oxygen around the body and deliver waste products like carbon dioxide back to the lungs to be removed. So the heart consists of 4 chambers, and each are separated by valves which direct the flow of blood. So we'll delve in further to the 4 chambers, the parts of the heart. So first is the right atrium, which is here. So it's 2 large veins right there, deliver oxygen poor blood to your right atrium. So oxygen poor, like deoxygenated blood. Next is right ventricle. So it pumps the oxygen poor blood to your lungs through the pulmonary artery. The lungs reload the blood with oxygen. So the flow of blood is going from the right atrium towards the right ventricle over here. So after it goes through the right ventricle pumps blood back to the heart so that it can be oxygenated again. Next is we'll go to the right side, out to the left side. We have first the left atrium. So after the blood from the lungs that was transferred by the right ventricle, after it goes to the lungs, it goes to the left atrium. So after the lungs fill your blood with oxygen, the pulmonary veins carry the blood to the left atrium. This upper chamber pumps the blood to your left ventricle. So this one receives blood from the lungs. So next is the left ventricle. So the left ventricle is slightly larger than the right. It pumps oxygen-rich blood to the rest of your body. So after it receives blood from the left atrium, the left ventricle pumps the blood so that it can be redistributed back to the body. So we have the aorta here, which is the biggest blood vessel of the body. Okay, next, we have the blood vessels. So there are blood vessels to transport nutrients to organs or tissues and to transport wastes away from the organs or tissues in the blood. So there are 3 types of blood vessels. First are the arteries, second are the veins, and last is the capillaries. So the capillaries are the smallest among the 3. Okay, so first we'll delve into the arteries. So the arteries' function is to carry blood away from the heart. And each region of your body has a system of arteries supplying it with fresh, oxygen-rich blood from the lungs. So it's tough on the outside and smooth on the inside so that blood can flow freely through it. And the inner layer is very smooth so that the blood can flow easily. So, in contrast, we have the veins. So we have previously the arteries supplying blood through the body, so it has to flow blood really easily. So here we have the veins which carry blood to the heart. Okay, so as it carries the blood to the heart, it receives blood from the capillaries. So it transports waste-rich or oxygen-poor blood back to the lungs and heart. So the valves are located inside the veins. So these are the function of the valves. It allows blood to move in one direction. So as opposed to the arteries, which has a smooth inside so that the blood can pass freely, we have the veins that has valves so that the blood only moves in one direction. So it's back to the heart so that it can be cleaned and resupplied again with oxygen. Next is the capillaries. So it's very thin, only one cell thick. So there's a reason why capillaries are very thin. It connects arteries and veins, and most importantly, they exchange materials between the blood and other body cells. So it needs to be very small so that cells can get the nutrients and the oxygen that was in the blood. The exchange of materials between the blood and the body can only occur through the capillaries. So in the lungs, you also have small capillaries there so that you can have the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Next is the blood. We'll go to the last component of the circulatory system. So, what is the function of blood? So it's pumped by your heart and it travels through thousands of miles of blood vessels. It carries nutrients, water, oxygen, and waste products to and from your body cells. So it's the main supplier for all of our body systems. It's made up of liquids, solids, and small amounts of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which we'll get into in a bit. So here are the main components of mammalian blood. So we'll only focus on mammalian blood, and later we'll be focusing on mammalian circulatory patterns. So first we have plasma. Second is red blood cells. Third is white blood cells. And lastly is platelets. So first we'll go into plasma. So it's a straw-colored liquid that carries the cells and the platelets which help blood clot. So if you can see in this diagram right here, the yellow fluid here is the plasma and it carries salts, minerals, water, and proteins. So yes, also it has carbon dioxide, glucose, amino acids, proteins, minerals, hormones, and urea. So if you're not familiar with urea, it's the one that's being filtered by the kidneys so that it can be excreted away from the body because it's a waste material that is being generated by the cells. Next is red blood cells. It's a biconcave disc that is round and flat without a nucleus. So it should be noted that it has no nucleus, and you can see the shape here, biconcave disc. So the purpose of it is it contains hemoglobin, and it's a molecule especially designed to hold oxygen and carry it to the cells. Because all cells need oxygen, it's the red blood cells that carries the hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen so that it can be delivered to the cells. It can change shape to an amazing extent without breaking, as it squeezes single file through the capillaries. So if you can remember earlier, we have discussed about the capillaries. Capillaries are one cell thick. So the red blood cells need to be very durable, and it has to change its shape to an amazing extent so that it can squeeze through the capillaries and deliver the oxygen and other materials to your cells. So it's a very interesting feature that red blood cells have. So next is white blood cells. As you can see here, there are 5 types: neutrophils, monocytes, eosinophils, lymphocytes, and basophils. But we'll be discussing only the major ones. So there are many types and all contain a big nucleus. So as opposed to the red blood cells, which do not have a nucleus, white blood cells have a big nucleus. So there are only two main ones that we're going to be discussing. It's the lymphocytes and the macrophages. So macrophages eat and digest microorganisms, while some lymphocytes fight disease by making antibodies to destroy invaders by dissolving them. Other lymphocytes make antitoxins to break down poisons. So they're specialized in either destroying invaders or breaking down poisons. So they protect our body. And last but not the least, we have platelets. So it's this white thing here that you can see that's clumped together with the red blood cells. So they're bits of cell broken off larger cells. And they produce tiny fibrinogen fibers to form a net. So this net traps other blood cells to form a blood clot. So when you have a wound, it's the platelets that are responsible for closing that wound. They produce fibrinogen fibers so that the blood will thicken and then it will stop the bleeding. Okay, so now we'll go into the circulatory patterns. So there are three kinds of circulation throughout the body. So first you have pulmonary circulation, coronary circulation, and then systemic circulation. So we'll go into each one of them and we'll be starting with the pulmonary circulation. So it's the movement of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart again. So as you can see here in this diagram, so the deoxygenated blood is transferred to the lungs, and then once the blood is oxygenated, it's transferred back. So that movement is called pulmonary circulation. So next, we have coronary circulation. So it's the movement of blood through the tissues of the heart. So you can see here the arteries in the heart. So it's the movement of blood only in the tissues of the heart and nowhere else. So some examples of this are the left main coronary artery, right coronary artery, and blood travels here so that it can supply nutrients to the heart. Next, we have systemic circulation. So systemic circulation is the supplying of nourishment to all tissue located throughout the body except for the heart and lungs. So it's to every major organ system, body part, except the lungs. So any movement of blood through any part except the lungs is called systemic, except the heart and lungs. So it's called systemic circulation. Okay, so to summarize it all, here we have two concept maps. So the first concept map is regarding the whole circulatory system. So we have the heart, blood vessels, blood, and their function. So first we have the heart. So the heart's function is to pump blood and oxygen around the body and deliver waste products like carbon dioxide back to the lungs to be removed. So the heart has four chambers, which are the atriums and the ventricles, the left and right atriums and the left and right ventricles. So generally speaking, the atriums are thin-walled chambers that receive blood from the veins, and then the ventricles are thick-walled chambers that forcefully pump blood out of the heart. So these are the four chambers. Next, we have the blood vessels. So the blood vessels' main function is to transport nutrients to organs and tissues, and to transport waste away from those. So we have the three types of blood vessels. We have the arteries, veins, and capillaries. So the arteries' main function is to carry blood away from the heart. Veins is to carry blood to the heart, and capillaries, they exchange materials between the blood and other body cells. So it should be noted that they only happen in capillaries. The exchange of materials between blood and body cells, they only happen in capillaries. So next we have the blood. So it carries nutrients, water, oxygen, and waste products to and from your body cells. So the main components of the blood is the plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So the next concept map is regarding the different circulatory patterns. So we have the pulmonary. So the pulmonary is the movement of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart again. The coronary is the movement of blood through the tissues of the heart. And then lastly is the systemic, which is the nourishment to all tissue located throughout the body except for the heart and lungs. So without the heart and lungs, we have the systemic circulation, all parts of the body. So thank you for watching, and that was my presentation for the circulatory system. So thank you and have a good day.